How's Washington feeling right now? No better guy to go to than Roman Tomashoff, Locked On Huskies, joining me here on the show. One of the latest spring games in all of college football occurred over the weekend, Roman, at Husky Stadium. And let's talk big picture takeaways here. Why don't we get the less good part out of the way? This was not a brilliant showcase for the Huskies offensive line.
It certainly was not. And, that was to be expected. Where the more that you look at it, the only guy who is not a true redshirt freshman on that offensive line is a sophomore, and that's right tackle Drew Azzopardi, who's a transfer from San Diego State. He's looked really good. I've been impressed with him, but he hasn't necessarily had a lot of help. But I don't know if that'll necessarily be the case this fall, where UW has brought in Portland State center D'Angelo Titiali out of the transfer portal. They brought in Old Dominion tackle Chris Adams, who's probably going to slot in on the left side, where shout out to our good buddy Ben Glassmeyer over at Huskies Wire, who did a really fantastic film review on him and said that he's a really, really solid prospect over there. Washington's also going to be getting back left guard Memelar, who was actually slotted to start last fall on Washington's Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, and then hurt his knee before the season started. And so he's still working his way back from that. He started practicing a little bit later on in the spring. So reinforcements are certainly coming along Washington's offensive line, and it's not going to look like it did in Friday's spring game.
Yeah, and going forward for, the big picture in the season for the Huskies here, Roman, how big of a problem could this be? What sort of obstacles will Jedd Fisch face as a head coach and play caller in his offense if this unit isn't able to take some steps forward before the season begins?
Yeah, the biggest problem is it's not going to be Jedd Fisch coaching staff. They're not going to be able to establish the run the way that they want to. Where Jonah Coleman has been really impressive. I like what I've seen from him.
He's very good.
Yeah, I love Jonah Coleman, man.
I last year on then Locked On Pac-12, RIP. I said many times that Jonah Coleman was the most underrated running back in the Pac-12 because there were so many good ones. You had Damian Martinez, Jay Knott was the leading rusher. You had Bucky Irving at Oregon. You had Jaquindon Jackson at Utah. Marshawn Lloyd at USC was really good. Coleman was a fan.
Dylan Johnson.
Yeah, sorry, Dylan Johnson at Washington. It was all about the passing attack. But Johnson was an all Pac-12 performer as well. And Coleman was maybe the fifth best running back in the conference last year. But that's a testament to how many good running backs there were. Absolutely. Those guys were current or future NFL draft picks. But if he doesn't have an offensive line to run behind, that's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing where, again, I feel like that will be sorted out. And it's not just Jonah Coleman. It's Cameron Davis, who we're going to see coming back after he led the team in touchdowns in 2022. And then, led them in touchdowns on the ground. And then Adam Muhammad. Sorry, I was like, there's one other name. Adam Muhammad, true freshman, who followed Jedd Fisch from Arizona, who is just a freak of nature physically. I remember looking at his high school film and then looking at him in college. He's 6'2", 205 now. He is just absolutely massive. And shout out to Scotty Graham, who said, yeah, he's still a baby. He just turned 18 last week. And when he gets up to 220, I'm going to quote Scotty Graham here. He said, he's going to be lunch money. You know what that means? In high school, give me your lunch money? No. Yes, give me your lunch money. That's a direct quote from Scotty Graham about Adam Muhammad. They also just got a commitment, as we're talking on Sunday, Spencer, about from another Arizona product in Jordan Washington, their other running back recruit from the 2024 class, who just brings speed like I haven't seen in high school film since John Ross, man, where there's going to be so many talented running backs on this roster that needs to be established.
What or who stood out to you the most on the offensive side of the ball in Washington's spring game?
Spencer, our everydayers over on Locked On Huskies are probably so tired of hearing me talk about Denzel Boston because every single day that dude is making a catch like I've never seen. Where every single day
he's going. You might have seen him last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or a couple times.
I'm not exaggerating when I say this. He was going up and over the top of 6'4" Ephesians Prysock to make catches. He is running away from guys like Roma Dunze would. He has elite speed. He's got fantastic hands. He went for 127 on a touchdown in Washington's spring game. And the more I watch Denzel Boston, the more excited I get about him. And people are probably like, oh, well, he didn't do anything last year. Why not? Because he was sitting behind 4 future NFL receivers. And I'm throwing Jeremy Bernard into that conversation because he's absolutely going to be an NFL receiver. And I know I'm getting really excited about this, but it's hard not to the more that I watch him, because he can do everything Rome Odunze can, and is a similar body type. He's a similar athlete, and he's so exciting to watch, especially paired with Jeremiah Hunter, the Cal transfer on the other side of the field, where Thaddeus Dixon, cornerback, who is slotted to be a really big part of the rotation this year, said there really isn't going to be that much of a drop-off from watching those guys last year and practicing against them every day to practicing against these guys. There's still so much to like and so much to be desired that this is really not going to be nearly as much of a drop-off at wide receiver as people think.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of media speak there from a corner saying, look, there's just not going to be a drop-off from last year. Yeah, there is. Like, there's going to be a drop. I don't care who you replace him with. Unless you've put together the most insane portal class imaginable, you're not going to once again generate a first, second, and third round receiver in the NFL draft. That's not replicable.
You're absolutely right. He said not that much. He didn't say no drop off. He said not that much.
That's fair. And by the way, I think those are two good. If Boston, is able to live up to that potential, I think Jeremiah Hunter has been a really, really important piece that Jedd Fisch has kept around. I mean, not more important than Will Rogers necessarily, but talk about what you saw from Rogers, who is going to have, at the very least, some weapons. We talked about the offensive line maybe being a question mark in there, but he's going to have guys to throw the ball to and dump it down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing where it all comes back to the offensive line, like we just talked about. As long as they can hold up, Will Rogers is going to be, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, more than serviceable in this offense, where it's not like watching Michael Penix. Like, if you want to talk about a drop-off, that's where it is, where Will Rogers is very talented. But watching the ball come out of his hands is just not what Michael Penix is. And those are very, very high expectations to live up to. But Will Rogers is the perfect guy to come in and distribute the ball to this offense this year, because he can run the quick game that Jedd Fisch wants to with efficiency. And while he doesn't have nearly the same arm talent to push the ball down the field, he's shown that he can put the ball in the right spots. And with those two guys on the outside, they're going to be able to make plays.
Is Washington's defense good enough for them to go over 7.5 wins?
I mean, the prediction I've had on Locked On Huskies all offseason is 8 wins. So that's where I've had them. My big prediction when I look at the schedule is I think they win at Iowa. And the way I look at the schedule, that's win number 8. It's bold, I know, but that's my 8th win for them.
I'd be curious to see what Vegas puts on a line for that game, because look, if you've got offensive line questions, Iowa's probably not the team to go against. There are better matchups. But again, that's also kind of a theme in the Big Ten, where they pride themselves on physicality and winning in the trenches, maybe a little bit more than the Pac-12 did in years past. But if it were at home, that's one thing. Going to Iowa, that's a challenge. It could very well hinge on that. I think Washington is probably in the 7 to 8 win range. I think 6 is more likely than 9, though. But here's my shred of optimism for Husky fans, and this is not even that tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but just bear with me here.
Okay.
The last time Washington had a win total of 7.5, a new on-the-rise head coach coming from a less glamorous job with a veteran transfer quarterback, they went 11-2. And I'll just say I didn't predict them to go 11-2 that year. I don't think Washington's doing that this year. I'm just saying the stars have aligned once upon a time.
So I agree with you, and that's where I get 8 wins from, is because the way, especially the front of the schedule lines up. When it's Weber State, Wazoo, Eastern Mich, and then your first 2
Don't
Big
sleep
Ten
on the
opponents.
Cougars, by the way. Don't sleep.
I can't say I'm sleeping on the Cougars, but just the way that game has gone for a very long time. And then your first 2 conference games are Northwestern and Rutgers. Going to Rutgers is going to be tough. They have a better team than people think. But I think
bowl team last year. Bowl team.
Yeah, exactly. But the more I look at that, the more I think that they're going to be able to start 5-0. And then it's a matter of going 3-5 down the stretch. You got UCLA in there. You got Indiana in there. Those are the 2 other games where you get to 7 right there. I think that they can pull off one more victory at the very least in the other games on the schedule, being USC, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, and Oregon.
Roman Tomashoff, Locked On Huskies. Thanks for stopping by, Roman.
Spencer, thanks for having me.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.